My name is Ethan Taylor. I used to believe love and happiness were natural destinations, something you arrived at if you stayed kind and true, but that illusion shattered exactly 1 week before my wedding. I came home earlier than planned. The living room door creaked open and I froze. Time seemed to slow. There stood Hannah, my fiancée, framed in the doorway like a still from someone else's story. She looked stunning, almost surreal. A sleek black cocktail dress, a string of pearls, sheer stockings, high heels. She looked like a dream, but something in her eyes didn't match. They weren't full of warmth or recognition. They were distant, avoidant, cold. I couldn't place the feeling at first, just a strange, tightening weight in my chest. Hannah. "What's wrong?" I asked, stepping inside with a smile moving in for the usual hug. She dodged my gaze, her voice trembled. "I didn't expect you home yet." "I thought I'd surprise you," I said gently, kissing her cheek. "Start getting ready for the honeymoon." She gave a small, nervous smile, but didn't meet my eyes. "So," I asked, keeping my voice light, "where are you off to dressed like that?" "I just need a little time to myself," she murmured. "I'm going to a hotel, downtown." Something shifted in me. A hotel. Alone. Her silence spoke louder than words. Then, reluctantly, "I'm meeting a friend." A chill crept down my spine. "What friend?" I asked, steady but firm. "What's their name?" No answer. "Is it a man?" That broke the silence like glass. She lowered her head, voice faltering. "It's not what you think. You're misunderstanding." I stared at her, trying to hold back the anger swelling inside me. 1 week before our wedding, you're running off to a hotel with someone, and you expect me to just trust you? She blinked back tears. I need to clear my head. I need to figure things out. I couldn't hold it in anymore. "Figure out what? Whether or not you want to sleep with another man before our wedding?" She flinched. "You don't understand." "Then help me," I snapped. "Tell me who he is." There was a pause, then a whisper. "Scott Parker." The name hit me like a punch to the chest. Scott, my boss, the man I looked up to, trusted. "You're seeing him?" I choked. "You slept with Scott?" She said nothing, just stood there, gripping the doorknob like she wanted to disappear through it. "You don't deserve me," I said, voice low, final. "And this wedding? It's not happening." I turned away. She didn't stop me, didn't call after me. And just like that, it was over. I don't know how long I stood there. When I turned back, the door was still open, the room empty, the light from outside spilling in like a reminder that everything had changed. On the table, she left a note. Short, cold. "Next week I start a new chapter. I have to do this before it's too late." I stared at her words, numb. She'd made her choice. And now? I'd have to make mine, Ethan Vio. It didn't feel like a beginning. It felt like a knife, cold, precise, slashing through my mind. She called it a new chapter. But to me it was betrayal, dressed up in promises. I stared at the letter, its words swimming. She thought this would strengthen us. She believed infidelity could be a catalyst for growth. How do you rebuild a marriage when trust is ashes? The questions echoed endlessly. No answers ever came. I stood slowly, drew in a breath, trying to still the chaos inside me. My eyes drifted to the ring on my finger, and with it came the memories, laughter in the kitchen, lazy Sunday mornings, plans whispered under blankets. Could all of that really vanish so easily? Could I still love someone who shattered me, Ethan? VO, no, that part of me had died. I walked into the living room, where echoes of our life lingered, photos from the wedding, blueprints for a future that no longer existed, and there it was. Her phone, abandoned on the table in her rush to leave. I didn't want to touch it, but my fingers didn't ask for permission. Unlocked, messages, Scott Parker, flirtation, lies, secret, meetings, carefully timed deceptions. She hadn't stumbled into this. She designed it. Ethan, VO. This wasn't a mistake. It was a campaign, a choice, a war she waged quietly behind my back. The rage that rose in me wasn't loud. It was deep, measured, the kind that doesn't boil, it burns. Then the front door creaked open. Caroline stood there, tear-streaked and silent, like a defendant waiting for the verdict. "Caroline, Ethan, you can't just leave me." Her voice was soft, almost rehearsed. "Caroline, love you. I needed space. I needed to feel like I mattered, like I had control. Scott said this would make me an equal. Ethan equal." The word stung. "Ethan, so you destroyed everything to feel powerful." She took a step forward. I stepped back. "Ethan, you manipulated me, lied to me, betrayed every inch of trust I gave you, and now you want a clean slate." She said nothing. I turned to leave. I didn't want to hear another excuse. Then my phone buzzed. Unknown number. One message. "We need to talk. Scott is dead." The world stopped. The room shrank. I turned slowly. Caroline's eyes went wide. "Ethan dead?" She nodded, speechless. "Ethan, VO, all this destruction. For him. And now, he's gone." She collapsed onto the couch, sobbing. But I couldn't move, couldn't feel. The betrayal had a body count now. "Ethan, this was never about love. It was about control, ego, power. You gambled with our lives, and you lost." Caroline didn't want this. I didn't want anyone to die. Ethan, but someone did. I turned, but my phone rang again. Unknown caller. Ethan. Answering, voice hollow. "Hello?" Detective. OS. "Ethan Blake?" Ethan, yes. Detective. OS. "This is Detective Harris. It's about Scott Parker." His wife, Loretta, she's in custody. Ethan, Loretta, Detective. OS. "She shot him multiple times. We'll need you to come in and provide a statement." Ethan, VO, Loretta. Of all people, everything spiraled again. Deeper. Darker. Caroline just sat there, silent, hollow, as if the world had finally shown her the weight of her choices. And me? I stood in the ruins, or the one responsible for his death was among us, and somehow I was tangled in all of it. I stood up in silence. My thoughts were a storm, loud, chaotic, relentless. I couldn't stay here. I couldn't look at Caroline, couldn't breathe in this space any longer. I didn't know where I was going, only that I had to leave. The police asked me to come in to give a statement, but the only question looping in my head was, how did everything fall apart so completely? At the station, I was met by a middle-aged officer whose eyes held too much history. He motioned for me to sit. The room was heavy, dim, the air thick with something unspoken. He started, "Loretta knew about the affair. She received an anonymous letter. Someone from the company told her. That's how she found out Scott had been seeing Caroline behind her back." I didn't react. I had already suspected it. "She was furious," he continued. "She brought a gun. Waited for the moment." "So Loretta killed Scott?" I asked, but the answer was already sitting quietly in my chest. The officer nodded. "She confronted him in the living room. He never saw it coming. The scene was brutal." A cold tremor crawled up my spine. I could barely picture it. Her pain turned into something irreversible. But I also couldn't stop thinking about Caroline, about how she had ignited this entire storm. Scott's death wasn't just a tragedy. It was a chain reaction, missteps, secrets, betrayals. Loretta had pulled the trigger, but we all carried some guilt. When I got home, everything felt foreign, empty. Caroline was gone. And in a way, so was I. I didn't love her anymore. That much I knew. But there was still a dull ache. Something hard to name. What I did know. I wasn't going back, not to her, not to the past. The cost of betrayal had stripped me of whatever forgiveness I had left. It was time to move forward. Alone. Work became a lifeline. Not because I was ready, but because it gave me something to do, something to drown in. The pressure, the deadlines, the meetings, they numbed the noise. But when the evenings came, and I walked into an empty home, the loneliness came crawling back. I tried reaching out, to friends, to family, but no one really understood. They thought I'd done the right thing leaving Caroline. Maybe I had, but they weren't the ones carrying the weight. Then, one afternoon at my usual coffee spot, she walked in. Sophia. She scanned the room, holding a warm cup between her hands, and her eyes landed on me. There was a pause, a hesitation. Then she walked over. We had never really spoken about the past, not about Caroline, not about Scott, not about the fracture that ran through everything. But as she sat down, I could see it in her eyes. She knew I was still haunted. "I don't know how to fix it," she said gently, "but I'm not going anywhere." I looked at her, and there it was, the quiet steadiness I hadn't known I needed. Sophia wasn't Caroline, and I didn't love her the way I had once loved Caroline, but maybe that was the point. She hadn't hurt me, she hadn't lied, she stayed. As time passed, I realized life wasn't just about what I'd lost. It was about what remained, about who remained. One night, as we watched the sunset from the living room, Sophia asked, "How do you feel about Caroline now?" I thought for a while. "It's not anger anymore," I said. "Just regret. I regret what we could have had. But I don't want to go back." I turned to the window. The sky was bleeding into soft colors. "I can't change the past, but I can choose the future." She didn't say anything else, just smiled, took my hand. And in that moment, I finally understood. That's the comfort I'd been searching for, not in Caroline, in her. In the end, I learned something brutal and true. Trust is the spine of any relationship. Once it's broken, it rarely grows back the same way. But if you keep living in the ruins of yesterday, you'll never build tomorrow. Betrayal is a deep wound, but it's not fatal. You fall, you shatter, but you get up, and sometimes that's all it takes to begin again. 1.